How's it going, folks? How's it going, folks? How's it going? Howdy, howdy. Hope everybody's doing well. We got a guest speaker on tonight. We're going to be covering a lot of financial information, some budgeting, some literacy, quite a bit. Thank you guys so much for joining. Gonna wait for some people to get in here, and our guest Ella, who will be joining us. She's from Melbourne, Australia. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Very, very exciting. Waiting for her to request access to get on in here. All right. Should be connecting here momentarily. All right.
Hello. Yay, I can't believe that worked.
I'm glad it did too. I was just hoping I didn't mess anything up. Ella, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you? Since these 5 minutes we've been away from each other.
Yeah, it's we got in a quick little meeting just to go over everything, make sure we were all squared away, and then now we're getting this situated. So I'm glad I didn't mess up anything on my end since this is my first live on TikTok. So, Ella, thank you so much for joining us. I have not been in the TikTok realm for OBR, but I will provide an introduction here momentarily. But Ella, could you provide an introduction of yourself? Because I'm sure we would all love to hear about you.
Okay, so I'm Ella. I have a TikTok account which is based around money tips, personal finance. I just talk all things money and my experiences. And I also just, I post funny things as well. Yeah, and that's what I do.
What about your background? Could you give us a little bit about your background, what you do outside of TikTok?
So 2 years ago, I started my business and I have an events business. So in Melbourne, Australia, I run a nightclub. So we do a lot with music. A lot of people come to our events to dance and have fun. But since the pandemic, we've been in lockdown, and our lockdown in Melbourne is very strict. So, yeah, we're in full lockdown right now. Can't operate the clubs, and they won't be coming back till November, December. So for that reason, I've just been focusing on TikTok and just spreading my financial knowledge.
There you go, and thank you so much for that. One of the incredible things about you is we have a lot of viewers and a lot of people within our group and our company that are trying to make sure that they can primarily stock trade and invest and work in the market, for example, or just work in the crypto markets. But you're in multiple different fields. You're still investing. You're still focused on your financial background and making sure everything's stable. So that's incredible. And the events business and what it is that you're doing for work with your company is not necessarily related to the stock market, but you're intertwining both fields, which is so incredible. So, guys, today we are covering a few different things. We are covering financial literacy comprehensively. We are covering budgeting, and we are covering how to take the proper steps to prepare yourself financially to start getting into different asset classes. We'll talk about those asset classes, and then I would love to ask Ella a little bit about Australia and some of the differences as an investor in Australia versus what we're probably dealing with and or working with in the United States, because there are some key differences. There's some things that they can and cannot do that we can or cannot do. So there's a lot of differences there, and I'm super excited to hear about them. So in regards to financial literacy as a whole, Ella, if you were to be talking to somebody who maybe just graduated from university or college and they're trying to make their first steps, how would you approach a conversation with them?
Mm. Well, I get asked this question a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to be really blunt with people. And I say, if you want to start investing, you need the money to do so. You can't just start investing with no money. So you need to start working, and either you get a job, and with the job, you need to find a job that has a good rate. And if you don't want to do that, you start a business. And once you do either of those, you need to start saving your money. And when you get to a certain point, then you can start investing. What do you think?
So there's a lot of steps there, right? And there's a lot of variables involved with everything that you just mentioned, and I think that's a phenomenal way of going about it. We've got a very small community of people that will leave college and have absolutely no desire to work for someone else. And they would love to start a business, and they have to find a way to do that. And if that means living with your parents for a little while, if that's what they're providing to you, or trying to do your best to live on your own, but if you're trying to build a business, maybe working a job is something that will be able to fund your business as you create it, get it off the ground. Because a lot of successful businesses take a few years to get developed fully, to create either a profitable business or a full-time income, or income to replace the expenses you may currently have out of college. So, and again, if you guys get a job, hopefully it's correlated to the major that you wanted to have, right? And then some people don't necessarily go to college or go to university. So there's different paths there. Now, in regards to that specifically, in regards to deciding to go to college, how to save money to either invest in a business or start a business, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so it completely depends on the career that the person wants. If you want to work as a lawyer, an accountant, then you have to go to university or college in your case, and you have to get that degree. And once you get it, then you can start making some really good money. However, if that's not for you, like I could never do that. I would never work at a desk as an accountant. I just could not do that. So for me, starting a business was the only thing on my mind. And I was at university at the time, but that just didn't serve me. So I took a step back from that and I put all of my energy into a business, and that's what has worked for me. But it's going to depend on the type of person you are.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's an excellent way of going about it. It is very much case by case basis. But if you are preparing appropriately, one of the major factors that everyone is worried about is their finances. So when they get out of college and they want to move out, they want to have an apartment, and goodness, it's a little different in Australia based on what you're telling me for somebody to live
Mm.
comfortably in regards to the apartments or, oh, sorry, my camera just lagged. Sorry about that. It's quite a bit different for you all in regards to the price of rent, the price of apartments, and real estate
Yeah.
as a whole. So, if you are trying to get a hold of your own financial independence, then you guys have to have an income source that will cover you and cover your expenses. Now,
Mm.
Ella mentioned to me that the real estate value is extremely high. Property value is extremely high in Australia. Before I provide a couple of solutions to maybe filter that out, could you talk to me about the property value in Australia?
Yeah, so it's just off the charts. I guess it's sort of the equivalent to what you guys experience in LA or New York. Our median price in Melbourne now, so that's one of our cities, it's nearly $1 million, the average. So the average house is nearly $1 million. I'm not too sure what that is in your currency for you, but yeah, no, it's crazy.
That
Um,
is too damn high.
too damn high.
Too high.
So yeah, buying a house is just super challenging for anyone our age or even older. And yeah, and because the prices of property are so high, then that's passed on to the rental.
So that means high as the sky, property values high as the sky. I just quickly looked up what the average home price in the United States is, and it's a third. It's 374,000, so a little bit more than a third. That is just unbelievable. I the difference is just unbelievable. So one of the things that I was going to recommend for people living in the United States in order to make their properties cheaper, in order to live with maybe friends or other people, so that their expenses are dropped, so that they can begin investing and they don't have that larger gap. They can create a larger gap between their gosh, my phone. That's not good. Uh,
That's okay.
so what I was going to say is one of the things that I always recommend for individuals to get their own apartment, trying to move into a house and they want to start investing, and they're also trying to make more, but also not trying to have their expenses high, because there are a lot of people that live in the areas you mentioned in the United States, LA, California, New York, and there's a lot of homes there. So one of the things that I always recommend on the real estate side is house hacking. And I think that's a great way for people to lower their costs. And what that consists of is, hey, I'm going to call my 3 best friends that graduated college for me and are all graduated college with me, excuse me. And they're all working right now, and they all have full-time incomes, and we're all going to live together, and we're going to split the rent 4 ways, 3 ways,
Yeah.
maybe 5 ways. So that's a great way to do it. But goodness, even doing that with your all's property value, even that's difficult. So what would you recommend for moving into an apartment or moving into a house in Australia?
So it's quite similar for us here. Number one, I feel like it's much more prevalent that we live at home for longer, and it's just much more accepted here than it is in America. Like my older brother is 27 and he still lives at home. And that's a bit weird, but like that's a thing in Australia. But in terms of if you were desperate to move out, then yeah, we don't call it house hacking. We just call it like share house.
Okay.
So you might have a house in a suburb with 4 bedrooms, and then there are 4 people renting there, and you're all students. And that's what people do when they are desperate to leave home.
Is because, like I said before, if you can get into a situation where your expenses are dramatically lessened, and one of our largest expenses always is a mortgage or our rent, right? Primarily, that is the largest expense for most of us. So that being said, if you can bring that large expense down, so let's say you want to move into an apartment and your apartment costs, it's a very nice apartment, it's a 4-bedroom, and it costs $3,000. And you have 3 roommates and you split that 4 ways. The difference between what it is you were paying for that versus what you are now paying with 3 other people splitting it with you, you could invest every single month, right? And that is a phenomenal way to start a business, invest in a startup, invest in your own business, invest in the stock market, cryptocurrency. We have a whole list of different asset classes. Now, in regards to educational sources and how to start independently educating yourself, because a lot of the people that we're targeting here are either in college or graduated college and may not be in accounting or finance or business. Where would you say would be a good platform for them to educate themselves in these different asset classes and the transition from making sure you have savings and an emergency plan to actually starting to invest in beginning a business?
Well, when I started, educating myself on everything, I actually started on YouTube. And I find that on YouTube, there's just a lot of free resource. Of course, there's going to be a lot of, YouTubers who don't have much of an idea, the content isn't the best. But if you can find a YouTuber who, they've been in the game for 20 years, they've been investing, they've been there, done that, you can get some really good information. And, you know, I think that was really good for me in terms of understanding concepts and just having the fundamentals down. Yeah, what about you? Where did you get all of your information from?
So I didn't provide my background earlier, but I'm a college dropout, so I had to do everything I could to learn. And actually, as funny as it is, my primary source of information was YouTube because it had the most visual application to everything that I wanted to learn. So people were, and I'm a numbers guy. I'm very analytics based. It's how my brain works. And so that was incredible for me because I was able to see how people were applying it, see people flipping houses, buying stocks, leveraging software. And I was an information systems major with a software programming background and a cybersecurity background. So I wanted to get into the stock market, and the best way I could watch someone actively do what it is that I wanted to do on these different platforms was YouTube. And what I did was all of the words, buzzwords, lingo, options, stocks, equities, ETFs, Bitcoin, whatever Bitcoin is, who knows what that is. Uh, I went right and I Googled all of those words, and I ran a Google Doc and a spreadsheet with everything that I needed, and that became my encyclopedia. And I would compare that to the YouTube videos I was watching to see if I was actually learning and if what they were applying made sense to me based on what I was starting to learn. Like you said, not all content's created equal, right? So that's why we try to produce the best we can. But there are a lot of people who may be misinformed or providing improper information or wrong information or incorrect information. So it's good to start learning on your own. Take a broad step with YouTube or Google or Yahoo Finance or what have you, based on the asset classes you're looking at, and then really start to create your own opinion. Kind of like how I tell everybody to do with politics. Research everything, right? Research everything so you understand how everything is interpreted and how everybody and why everybody believes what they believe on all sides, and then create and formulate your own opinion based on your morals and your logic. So it's the same way with YouTube and Google, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. So that's excellent. Now, moving into a couple other spaces, what are your preferred asset classes?
Mm,
Why?
good question. I feel like if I had unlimited capital,
Oh,
it would mostly be in real estate. And I think I would choose real estate because over time, it's amazing. You've got cash flow, it produces cash flow and the capital appreciation. So you're getting the best of both worlds. Also, I think it's cool because you can see it, feel it, touch it, you know? With real estate, you've got that pretty house that you can see, and yeah, that's your investment.
right.
Whereas stocks, I know looks and stuff, but like to me, like real estate is just so pleasing.
My partners is actually moving into real estate ourselves. So I should be on my way down to the Florida area, like we discussed. And one of the things that I want to get situated is something physical, right? Something that I can touch, something that I can see, that I can have people work on, right? And create opportunities for contractors, etc. So real estate is on the top of my list, and I'm going to start it with my own home. Very excited for that. So one of the things that I now have to go and do because I'm not in school for anything and I'm never going to pay a dime for education anymore is start doing research on real estate, start understanding how to leverage real estate. How do I surround it to protect myself from liability with an LLC or a corporation, etc.? So that goes back to our independent, education conversation, where I now have to go and outsource that because there's a whole bunch I don't know about the real estate market. I know a decent bit about the
Mm,
stock market. I do love my stocks, but I'm very
yeah.
I'm very much interested in real estate. So, what is in Australia for you? What would your investor outlook be with the property value being so high? How would that correlate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's why a lot of people don't crack into property for investment because it just, the price is so daunting. But the way in Australia that can help you crack into it is you can buy, you know, an apartment and it will be a third of the cost, or a townhouse. So, do you know what a townhouse is? Is that what you call them in America?
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what we call it.
Yeah. So townhouses are cheaper than a regular house, obviously, because there's less land.
Right.
So that is a lot cheaper, and that's what a lot of investors will look at to save money on the investment in order to get better cash flow. Yeah, so that is something that I would be considering if I was going to go into property anytime soon.
So, would a couple of different ways to look at your investing? Would you consider renovating and filling with tenants? Would you consider flipping those houses? How does that work over there?
Yeah, so all of those things do happen. However, um, the whole renovation, it's just like it's way too expensive to do in Australia and still have, you know, a cash flowing property because you do your renovation. That's a huge cost. and all the materials are super expensive, especially lately. Like, remember when lumber was like super expensive, and then and then like no one was building houses because the price was way too high. So I personally, I might renovate, paint your wall, redo your bathroom, but I wouldn't redo a whole house. It's just way too expensive. So for me, I would buy the property, put tenants in it, and then hold it forever, or you can buy a few properties, and of course you have the other properties.
So it sounds like you put some good thought into this, right? So for these properties, gosh, I mean, it's unbelievable how much more expensive it is, and it's an unfortunate circumstance. But for someone who does not have, say, a couple $100,000 employee asset class to get into as somebody still living with their parents, still in university.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It is pretty hard to get into property because you do need that deposit of $100,000, which is really hard for people to save, especially with the living costs that we have in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm sure in your country as well. Living costs are so high. So, which is why, like, I place a lot of emphasis on financial literacy and saving, because you need to be able to save that money in order to do things like put a deposit down for a house, etc. So, first of all, you need to either get a job, start a business that will make you money. And once you do that, you can start investing. And I know you love your safe investments. And yeah, I would probably recommend people getting into ETFs or just, stocks that are proven and go to trend upwards over the long term, even if the growth isn't crazy like a crypto.
Well, I think that's excellent. If you're looking for stability, that's good. And for so in regard to maybe not necessarily real estate, but moving into individual investments, maybe a business that someone could start up. What are some businesses that you're aware of that our age group is starting that have become
Yeah.
profitable in Australia that are beneficial to our age group?
So before I answer that, someone asked why $100,000 in Australia. So I said 100,000 because our property prices. Let's say you want to buy a unit, like an apartment or townhouse, for 500,000. A bank will tell you to save a 20% deposit, and that will be $100,000. So,
Uh,
so that is why I say 100,000. If the property is $500,000, then you will be in the green if you have a $100,000 deposit. Okay, so back to our business question. It's actually a really good question and something I've been thinking about recently. Little businesses that you can get into right now, especially in Australia, is retail. And at the moment, we are experiencing just a retail boom. Like, everything is selling out. I mean, it has to be a good product, obviously, but hoodies are going crazy. Just little pieces, and this is especially amongst girls, but like little pieces that you can go to a bar in, restaurant, just nice clothes. If you can produce followers and pretty much, I think that's what my business is too, because especially in you don't have to register it. You don't have to be doing all this, extra accounting stuff. Whereas with my business, it's like completely registered. But if I started a t-shirt brand tomorrow, you don't have to register all this stuff. No one's the ATO, well, okay, I'll tax people them. So that's probably the best business, I would say, for 18-year-olds and even younger to get into. Yeah.
Well, that's excellent. I think that's an incredible recommendation because that's something I used to do in e-commerce. Now, when is your brand going to come out? What products are you producing? What are you going to be doing about it?
Yeah, so the reason why I'm not in it yet is because, well, first of all, I'm not a designer and I don't have any passion for fashion, you know? And I don't think you should get into a business unless you actually have passion for it. What are you going, you're going to be hating the way to go. But yeah, if you like designing, if you like colors, fabrics, and everything, however, for me, the only reason I would do it is if I had some sort of brand that could sell merch. And in that case, I would be selling a hoodie with the logo for the merch, something like that. But there's still a lot of that would hold back getting into, you know, someone leaves hoodie and it does fit. I have to, wait for them to send it back, send them another one, issue a refund.
All right, I'm having connection issues
All right,
on my end. I'm sorry. I'm still listening. You were talking about.
I can't go on. Yeah,
Can you hear me? Okay.
okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. So, yeah, I just said there are a lot of things that hold me back from getting into it, but what do you think?
So for me, when I was in e-commerce, there was a lot of issues, and the biggest thing was returns, right? So you have to make sure the customers are pleased. I ran a business through Amazon, through Shopify. You have to really, really make sure that the customers are squared away with your product, that they fit. They're not going to send it right back to you because it's just a little too tight for them, or just not the right size, right? So
Mm.
in regards to apparel specifically, it's a difficult thing to do, especially if you just want to have your own apparel brand for you that you're creating an individual brand out of. Maybe it's not for business, maybe it's not for profit. You're just doing it for marketing, right? You still have to deal with size issues and making sure everybody understands, like, hey, these shirts might fit a little different, or this, for on the women's side, this dress might be a different size from what you're used to or a different fit. So it's a difficult business to get into, which is why I was not really in the e-commerce space for very long. Uh, and it's not necessarily sustainable, but it's a great place to be in if somebody can handle it and make sure that they're covering all their bases. So I don't want to cut us off early, but we just got to our 30-minute mark. Ella, can you give us some final words or anything you'd like to leave us with? And thank you again so much for taking your time to be with us on this platform.
First of all, thank you for having me. If I had to give a final send off, I would just say, Um, I hope to just inspire people and motivate people to take the first step. So you can see my content and that motivates you to start learning about investing, finance, whatever, then I feel like my job is done. So I just hope that people, you know, put a little bit of effort into their personal finances because I think, they can just water their plant today and in a few years they'll have a big, beautiful bonsai tree.
I think that's a great analogy and a great way to put it. So thank you for sharing that, and I think you're doing a great job. So I appreciate
Thank you.
your absolutely. I appreciate your company here, and I appreciate the conversation so much. And we covered a lot of great information. You have so much to share. So I'm sorry we couldn't fit all of that in this, but I'm sure there'll be another time where we can. So thank you so much for your time again, and you have a wonderful evening. Thank you guys so much for joining in. I'm sorry about the connection issues. I don't know what was going on. This is my first time on TikTok, and of course, I've got the unstable connection button going off every 5 seconds. So I'm not entirely sure what happened. Maybe we can do it on Instagram the next time because it seems to not mess me up. But I'm glad we can do it on TikTok because I know you have such an incredible platform there. So you have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk soon.